Okay, welcome back. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to start adding pieces to our obby. So we want to switch menus first of all. So let's go ahead and go back to the home menu. Let me switch that out. So go ahead and press home first. And then here we have a lot of different buttons. And let me change the view on my camera. So I'm going to click and hold the right mouse button. Then I'm going to use Q and E to move it up and down. And then I'm going to zoom in on it right here. And so you want to position your camera using the keyboard or the mouse to where the spawn location's in the middle like this and kind of big. Okay. So once you move your camera into position, what we want to do is we want to start adding pieces. And so we're in the home menu, and the first part of the home menu that we're going to use is right here. There is an insert part button, and it looks like a little blue cube. It says part and then insert underneath. Okay. Now there's actually two parts to this button. Let me show you what they look like. So I'm going to zoom in. And right here, if you hover, you can see that there are two parts to the button, the top part and the bottom part. Okay, now if you press the top part, it's just going to insert this cube. But if you click on the bottom part, you're going to get a choice of 4 parts to insert. So if you click on it, you'll see 4. Let me zoom out. Let me turn off the little zoom window. Okay. So if I click on the bottom, I see 4 different pieces that I can insert. I can insert a block, a sphere, a wedge, or a cylinder. And what we're going to do is we're going to press block to insert a piece. So if I do that, there it did. It put it right in the middle, and you see that it's, let me zoom in on it. And you see that it's a little gray cube. And over here in the Explorer window, you can see now that we have a new part, and it's called part. Okay. And so what we want to do first, let me just get a better view here. What we want to do first is we want to change the color on this. And so let me show you where that button is. Right here, there is a color change button. Okay. Now remember, we can actually change the color of our piece using the properties window, right? We can click here on brick color, and we can change the color of our piece to whatever we want. So I'm going to change it to pink over here, and you can see that it says pink. Or you can press on the color button, and it does the same thing. It's just another way to change the color. And so I can change the color here to something else. Okay, so 2 ways to change the color, either the properties window or the color window. Now that we've changed the color, another thing that we can change is the material. And the material is kind of like the skin that goes over your piece. So let me show you that button. It's right next to the color button. It's right here, the material button. Okay. So if you press on the bottom part of that, you get a choice of all of these different types of materials. So there's brick, there's stone, different kinds of rock, there's glass, there's metal, there's a nice neon material that I like a lot, and then there's some wood materials. And so I really like cobblestone, so I'm going to make my pieces cobblestone. Oh, in order to change the material, you actually have to click on the piece and then change the material. Yeah, okay. So now I have this little red cobblestone part in my obby. And again, you can not only change the material here, but you can use the properties window to change the material. So there's a little drop down that lets you change the material to whatever you want. And so I can make it brick, or I can go back to cobblestone. Okay. So what we've done so far is we've changed the color and the material of our part. What we want to do now is we want to use some of these other buttons. And so the next set of buttons that we're going to use are right here under Tools, in the Tools section of the Home menu. And you see we've been using the Select button already, but there's also a Move, a Scale, and a Rotate button. And I'm going to show you what those do right now. Okay, so the first one we're going to use is the Move button. But you can already move pieces by just clicking and dragging them. So let me show you that. If I zoom out a little bit, let me change the view on my window. You can actually just click with the left mouse button and you can move pieces using that method. Okay. But that doesn't give you as much control as the actual Move button. So let's use the Move button. So we're going to click on the Move button right here. And when you do that, you see these arrows, okay? And so the red and blue arrows, you can click and drag. They move your piece along the floor, sideways and back and forth. And then the green piece, or the green arrow, moves the pieces up and down, okay? Now, I want to show you something here. As far as moving, there is a collisions property up here that we need to use. So right here, there is a collisions checkbox. Okay, and let me show you what it does. Okay, right now it's off because there's nothing inside of the checkbox. But if I click it, now there's a little blue check mark. And let me zoom in on that so you can see that better. Okay, so there's this collisions property and there's a little blue check mark. And if you click, you can turn it off. Click again, turn it on. So now collisions are on. And let me show you what collisions on looks like. Okay, so with collisions on, I can't move pieces through each other. They stop. Watch. So I'm going to try to move through the floor using this green arrow, and it stops. It stops right there. And if I try to move it through the spawn location using the blue arrow, it stops. Now, if you move far enough, it will pass to the other side. Watch. Yeah, but it won't be inside. It'll wait until you've passed to move there. Yeah, but it just stops, right? So this is collisions on. But we can turn collisions off by clicking here so that there's no blue check mark. And now we can actually move inside of other pieces. They are allowed to pass through each other. Or we can move right through the floor. Okay. Now for this part of the lesson, we're actually going to leave collisions on. So make sure that the little check mark, the little blue check mark is right there. Okay. And what I want you to do is I want you to put your piece kind of close, maybe about right here, next to your spawn location. Okay, so that's the first step. The first step is moving our piece into position. Okay, once you've done that, we want to change the size of this part. And the way that we do it is we click here on the scale button. So there's this scale button that lets us stretch our piece. And again, if you don't have anything selected, you won't see this, right, when you click these buttons. But if you click on a part, and you have the scale button selected, now you'll see these circles. And these circles let you stretch your piece in all kinds of directions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stretch this piece so that it's about this size. And you can stretch it vertically also, but I'm going to keep it flat like that. Okay, and so what I want you to do is stretch your part so that it is about this size. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to create a stair of steps that we're going to jump on. Okay. So that is the scale button. Now, if we want to use the rotate button, you actually have to move the piece. Oh no, actually it rotates right here. So you can see that with the rotate button on, we see these green, red, and blue circles. And you can use those to rotate your piece. Okay, but we're not going to use that. We're going to leave our pieces unrotated like that. So I'm going to check the move button again. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make some copies. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and make copies of this part. And the way we do that, there's actually different ways to make copies. You can copy and paste, but Roblox Studio actually has a duplicate key or a duplicate button right there. Okay, so if you press that button, and remember, something has to be selected because that's what we're going to make a copy of. And it's good to have your move button turned on because we're going to move these pieces after we make copies. So if you press duplicate, watch what happens. So right now there's only one part here and there's only one part over here. But if we press duplicate, now there's two. Let me zoom in so you can see this. I'm going to move my camera a little bit. Yeah, see, now there are two pieces, one on top of the other, and over here there are now two parts. Okay, so we made a copy of our part. And what we want to do, the reason that I asked you to have the move button selected is because we're going to move this piece so that it's a little bit to the side of the other one. Okay, so let me show you what this looks like. Okay, so we've made two pieces and we've moved them so that we're starting our little stair of steps. And you can change the color if you want here. I have this one selected, and so I can change the color to something else. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to make 4 of these. We're going to make 4 copies, and we're going to move them in a kind of stair shape. So I'm going to make a duplicate by pressing this duplicate button. I'm going to move it to the side a little bit. Then I'm going to change the color. Make this one a nice blue. And I'm going to make one more copy. So duplicate, move it, and change the color. Okay, so now I have 4 of these. I have 4 of these pieces, and let me show you what they look like. I'm going to move my camera. And again, this is good practice for learning how to move your camera so you can see exactly what you need to. And so my pieces are going up slightly every time. Okay. So we have 4 pieces, we have our spawn location, and we have our floor. Now at this point, we would usually start to test our game, okay? And the way that we test our game is with the play button. And let me show you where that's at. Right here in the home menu, there is a play button. And if you press that, it will let you test your game inside of Roblox Studio. So let's do that. Let's press play and watch what happens. I press play, and now I have a working version of my game, and I can move around and test it, but there's something wrong. And so let me move to the side so you can see what's wrong. All of my pieces, they're not in the sky anymore. They fell to the floor. They're flat, and I wanted them to be up here. So something isn't right. So the way that we stop the test is with this stop button right here. Let me show you. Okay, so we let me turn that off. Hold on. Here we go. So we have a stop button right here, and if you press that, it will stop your game. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. Oh, sorry, hit too many buttons, and it stopped the test. Okay, now what I was telling you earlier is that our pieces here, they're up in the sky, but when we test our game, they fall to the floor. Why is that? Well, there is a property that we forgot to change. So if I click on one of these pieces, and I'm going to turn this on so you can see it better. I've selected this kind of pink brick, and there's actually an anchor property up here. Let me show you. I'm going to circle it or surround it with a little yellow square. That is the anchor button, and we press it in order to make our pieces stay where we put them. Okay. So if I press anchor, now it turns black. Let me show you the difference. I'm going to zoom in on this. Okay, and do you see how it has a black color? If I click it again, it's going to turn gray. So you want to make sure that it's black like that. Okay, so I've anchored that piece. And again, what that means is that the piece will stay where it will stay where I put it. If I don't have it anchored, then it's going to fall when I start the game. So I want to make sure that all of my pieces are anchored. So I anchored that one, it's black. I anchored that one, it's black. And I anchored this one. Now the button is black. And there's another way to check if your pieces are anchored. If you go into the properties window and you scroll down, you'll see that there is an anchored property here, right there. Right here, there's an anchored property, and you can see that it has a check mark. And you can set it here as well. So if I click on it, now it's no longer anchored, and this is no longer black. If I click on it again, check mark appears, and now this is black. So two ways to set the anchored property. And now that we've done that, let's test it again. Let's press play. And this time, hopefully, the pieces, yeah, and they are in the air. So let me move over here so you can see this. Now, my pieces are in the air, okay? So you have to use the anchored property in order to make those pieces stay. Otherwise, they fall. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my game again. Make sure you do that. All right, so we are getting the beginnings of our obby. So what do we want to do next? Well, right now this game is really easy because we can't really lose. You know, if you fall off the pieces, you just go onto the floor. So what we want to do is we want to delete the base plate. How do we do that? Well, we select it over here in the Explore window. See how it's blue now? It has a blue. And you can right click, and then there's a delete option right there. You can do that. Or you can just press the delete button on your keyboard. So I'm going to press the delete button on my keyboard and watch what happens. It's gone. Now there is no floor, and we just have our pieces here. Okay. And so now what I want to do is I want to test this. So I'm going to hit play. Okay. And now all I have are my steps and the spawn location. And I can move. I can actually step on these. I don't have to jump. But if I fall off the end, now I do have to start over. So I have to start over, and I should be on the spawn location. And there I am, and I have to try again. Okay, so it works. The pieces are staying in the air, and the floor is the base plate. The ground has been deleted. So now we actually have a working game. Okay, so I want to show you one more thing here. Let's say that you made a mistake. Let's say that I moved one of these pieces and I don't like what I just did. There's actually an undo button in Roblox Studio that lets you undo your last whatever you did. So it's right here. It's this little blue arrow pointed back. And if I press it, I can undo whatever I just did. So I'm going to hit undo, and it moves my piece back to the place it was before. And you can press that any number of times, and it'll let you do, it'll let you undo any number of steps. Okay, so it's very useful. If you make a mistake, just press undo. And when you do press undo, see my base plate came back. There's actually a redo button right here, and that will redo your last move. Okay. So this is good. So now we have some pieces. It's working. We can test it, and it looks good. So what I usually would do here is add a few different kinds of pieces. So let's add not just I'm going to move my camera here. Let's add a different piece. So right now we have these blocks. Let's add a sphere. So we go up here to the part button, and we click on the bottom part, and we add a sphere. Okay, there it is. Now I'm going to move it over to where it's next to the previous part. And I have collisions on, so I can't move through it. Okay. And then I'm going to change the size. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to click the scale button, and I'm going to change the size of my sphere and the color. I'm going to change the color to a nice purple. Okay. And then I can, again, move it. And you want to move your camera to make sure it's in the right location. Make sure it's where you want it to be. So that looks pretty good. Okay, and then you can make copies of this too. So if I hit duplicate, it puts it on top, and I have to just move it over. and down a little bit. Maybe about right there. And then change the color on these. I'll make this one an orange. Okay, and let me see if that looks good. So I'm gonna move my camera. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I might move this one a little bit to the side. Okay, that looks good. Maybe this one a little over. And I'm gonna add one more. Oh, and that's actually too far. You don't want to put these pieces too far from each other because then the game will become really difficult. So let me make a copy of this one. I'm going to duplicate again and I'm going to move it over. And I'm going to change the color on this one also. I'm going to make this one, I'll pick this color right here. Okay, that looks good. And now let me move my camera to make sure I like where all of these pieces are. See, these are too far apart. That'll be too difficult. Okay, and then once you've added some more pieces, go ahead and test your game and make sure that everything works the way you want it to. Oh, and you know what I forgot? I forgot to anchor these. So if I push play, they would just fall. So let's make sure and anchor all of these pieces. So anchor, anchor, and anchor. Okay, and now that I have all of these pieces anchored, let me go ahead and test it. Okay, so let me see how this works. Oh, okay, so I have to jump. Let me try again. Okay, nice. And these are close enough to where this isn't too difficult. Okay, so we've added some different pieces. We changed the colors. We've learned how to use a lot of these tools. And there are other pieces. There are other types of pieces that you could add. So let me show you what those look like. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so you can add in a wedge. Looks like a triangle. And you can add in a cylinder, which, well, looks like a cylinder. Okay. So these are other types of pieces that you could add. And again, you can move these, change the colors. But I like the way it is right now with just the steps and the spheres. So I'm going to undo and get rid of those. There we go. Okay, so this is a good place. I like this as the beginning to my Obby. What we're gonna do, oh, one more thing I should show you. What I've been doing so far is making copies of single pieces, but you can actually make copies of multiple pieces, like more than one. Let me show you how you do that actually, because that's actually pretty useful. It'll save you some time. So you can select more than one piece by just clicking and dragging a little window to select more than one piece. So you see how I've selected all 4 of those steps, and over here in the Explorer window, all 4 of them are blue. So I've selected all 4 of them. And then what I can do is I can actually make a copy of all of them. So if I hit duplicate, it's going to make a copy of all 4 of those pieces. Watch. There we go. So we have 4 that I made a copy of, and I can move them over so that they're over here on this side. Let me move them into place. And then let me make sure they're not too far from my other pieces. Let me move my camera, make sure everything's still centered. That looks good. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is the beginnings of a good Obby with lots of pieces. Again, you can test it every time you make changes. Make sure that it's playable, that things aren't too far apart. Let me just test it one last time, and then we'll move on. Okay, and it works. We have an Obby with a lot of different pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop again. Okay, and so we learned almost all of the buttons here in the home menu. We haven't learned the terrain editor button, the toolbox button yet, and we haven't used the game settings button, but we will. We'll learn almost all of these throughout the course. So this is how to insert parts, how to change them, the appearance, how to change the size and position. And in the next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to save our game and learn how to publish it. so that other people can play it as well. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson or in the next video.